Bimbofication is an objectification fetish or kink where the person wants to embody the image of bimbo, right? So bimbos, and it's, this obviously changes depending on the period of time you're in, but traditionally bimbos have very large breasts. They're kind of quite Barbie-like. They're not seen to be very bright. Frequently they have blonde hair, and they seem to be very sexually attractive. So that is a bimbo. So if somebody is into bimbofication, if it's the woman who's into bimbofication, then she's into embodying that archetype, as it were. If it's a man who's into it, they're into women who embody that archetype. What I have seen more of is cross-dressers also liking bimbofication. So traditionally, cross-dressers, and I'm going to be really clear, we're not talking about anything to do with gender. This is a
Yeah.
sexual fetish. But I think I've seen this reported a lot in the news, and people are saying, well, we don't want to talk negatively about somebody's exploration of gender. This has nothing to do with gender. Objectification tends to be a mild degradation kink in many forms. In some forms it's not, but in many forms. Something like this, it's mild because there's a worship of that whole persona as well. So although it can be seen as degrading, there's a lot of emphasis placed on the worship. That's traditionally what people will say about why people are submissive. It's a very narrow view of it, but it is true that that is sometimes the case, where you see powerful people who are constantly having to make decisions, holding people's lives, people's livelihoods in their hands, and they will release power to somebody else so that they don't have to do that. And it is a relief. And that could be part of it. That was my first thoughts about it, were actually around politics and not around what he was actually doing. Because there's nothing inherently worrisome in what he was doing, except that he was lying to his partner. So in the sexuality part of it, I haven't read anything yet or seen anything yet that is inherently worrisome, right? It's just a fetish or a kink. And most likely it's a kink, because fetishes are things that people need in order to reach orgasm. And they're usually, people have one or two fetishes, and those are the things they need. Whereas it didn't sound like this is something he's always been into, so it's most likely a kink. And so something he does every so often rather than something that he feels a need to do all the time. For somebody in his position in the world to do that is shocking, because I cannot believe that he did not know what the outcomes could be. So then, as a psychologist, of course, I wonder what the motivation was of not disguising yourself at all. It's one thing when the media discovers because somebody turns you in, or somebody's been digging and you've actually been well hidden, but they've been digging and they found you. It's quite another thing when you are so out in the open that anybody could have come across him. And all it takes is one person who knows who you are, and then boom, it's out there. So one has to wonder things like, was this passive aggressive? Frequently, when people are suppressing this and not telling their partners, they want their partners to know, right? Was this a way of getting it out? Was it passive aggressive? How angry is he really at his partner, right? What kind of a downfall? And I don't think people don't realize that when someone is your partner and they become high up in politics, or even high up in the media, in any way, in entertainment, that person didn't sign on to be in the public eye and to have their whole life examined in minutia. But for anybody who becomes famous, and politicians at that level become famous, people pick apart their lives. And so there's often quite a lot of resentment from partners that they find it hard to express, because all of a sudden they're being looked into and they're being picked apart, and they may not want the public eye on them.